you believe that Amy is Mother God, correct?
Yes, we know so.
Absolutely.
So you spend the day in the presence of the deity, of God, the creator of the universe.
Yes.
That must be an amazing experience for you.
You must think that these people are delusional, and you're not wrong. But apart from how interestingly bizarre these people are to be featured in Dr. Phil's show, is the morbid fate of their leader Amy Carlson. As a warning, this video is not for the faint of hearts because what's gonna come honestly feels like something out of an Ari Aster film. With that out of the way, let's begin with today's topic. Okay, let's start with Amy Carlson. She grew up in Dallas, Texas, the eldest of three whose parents were divorced when she was still a child. She had to split her time with her mother and father, who had both soon remarried to their respective partners in 1984. Throughout her teen years, she didn't behave any differently than any other teenagers. It was only when she entered adulthood was when she started to take interest in the bizarre. By this time, she already had 3 children and had been married and divorced once. She wasn't loving to her children according to her mother, and in the mid-2000s was when she became a regular member of a forum called lightworkers.org. If you go to the About Us page, you'll be met with 2 of the founders of the website whose goal is to help all sincere aspirants find freedom in living their highest purpose and healing their deepest wounds. This forum was the perfect catalyst for Carlson, and this is when she began chatting with Emerith White Eagle. She would eventually begin to develop feelings for White Eagle, whom she'd refer to as her twin flame. White Eagle convinced her that she was a divine being and they have a mission to awaken every human on the planet. She became so convinced of her divinity that she left her then husband, her children, and her work as a manager at McDonald's to join her new soulmate in Crestone, Colorado. Together, they formed an organization initially known as the Galactic Federation of Light, and they uploaded their first ever YouTube video in 2009. It was not until 5 years later was when the movement began to gain traction, aided mostly by their presence on the internet. They continued to upload videos on YouTube and do live streams selling their new age items, vitamin supplements, essential oils, crystal pyramids, and colloidal silver, which Amy herself took obsessively. They also sell a special kind of surgery dubbed etheric surgery, which can remove sickness and negative energy from the body, which proved to be the most lucrative. The success of their business was also thanks to Miguel Lamboy, who became an indispensable member by becoming the accountant for the group and the new father god as her relationship with White Eagle dwindled. If you ask the Love Has Won members what they believe in, you would find that they believe in almost anything that is out of the ordinary. And there's a lot. So I'm just gonna briefly go through what they are, just so you'll get the gist of it. They incorporated parts of New Age spirituality, conspiracy theories, and conventional Abrahamic religions. The followers believe that Carlson is a divine 19 billion-year-old entity who has created everything. They refer to her as Mother God, which makes her partner as Father God, and she had been reborn 534 times, including as Jesus, Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe, and Cleopatra. She was about to lead 144,000 people into the magical 5th dimension. They also believed that she was the queen of the lost continent of Lemuria, which they claimed to be situated in Mount Shasta in California. I don't know how Donald Trump was even involved in this, but Carlson believed that he was her father in her past life. Robin Williams' spirit had spoken to her as well, whom she claimed to be the Archangel Zadkiel. They reference Atlantis, the Anunnaki, and reptilians, but the one belief that they kept referring to throughout their lifetime is this entity called Cabal, which is determined to keep the planet in a low vibration state.
We got a lot of new people coming in asking who is Mother God.
The group was growing and was able to sustain themselves, but was being one of the members a pleasant experience? No. In fact, it was the opposite. In the early days, she was vital, charismatic, and sunny. She even appeared healthy. But behind the scenes, her worst impulses were eating away her lovable persona. Amy drank and, by several accounts, was a mean drunk, frustrated with those she saw as working against her. The group was not allowed to drink and use drugs despite their own leader consuming excessive amounts and acting abusively towards them. According to the ex-members of the group, they were often physically, emotionally abused and deprived of sleep, where they were only allowed 4 to 5 hours of sleep per night. The group also became the subject of several complaints from people who lived around them as they were accused of brainwashing and fraud. One of the most disturbing incidents was when somebody saw one of the group members wandering in the forest naked and dehydrated. When asked why, the person said they lacked the proper energy and they were on the wrong side of the mountain. As Carlson continued to succumb to her dark impulses, her health was on a gradual downward spiral. In August 2018 was when Carlson met her final soulmate, Jason Castillo, who became a crucial turning point that led Amy down the path to self-destruction. There wasn't a lot that was happening in 2019, so we'll just skip to 2020. The group moved to Hawaii on the island of Kauai, and you could imagine what happens when a group of hippie-looking Caucasians with unknown intentions starts to make outrageous, blasphemous claims that a woman amongst them is Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of fire and volcanoes, and the creator of the Hawaiian Islands. Of course, the people weren't happy about this, so they started fires by lighting up driftwood. They threw eggs and pebbles at their house, smashing their windows in their cars whilst chanting Hawaiian prayers. The mayor of Kauai had to intervene in order to ensure the group's safe departure, where they tried to relocate to Maui, but the local authorities managed to persuade them to return to Colorado. And then, literally days later, they were invited to Dr. Phil's show, where Amy and two of her followers were invited, as well as her mother and her two sisters. Carlson was already bedridden at this point, very frail, and her skin was beginning to turn blue from argyria, a result of her excessive use of colloidal silver. They covered topics about Amy's abusive behavior and leaving her children. The session they had with Dr. Phil in a way felt like a wake-up call or a flashback to her life before she became a cult leader. Amy's family really hoped that Dr. Phil would be able to turn her life around. They see him as their last chance, but in the end, they felt deeply disappointed that nothing came of it. Then, on April 28, 2021, Miguel Lamboy walked into the Salida Police Department and told the authorities with something right out of a horror movie. He told them that they would find a shrine of a mummified corpse of Amy Carlson at his house in Crestone, Colorado. Although Lamboy is a part of the cult, he apparently had no knowledge of Amy's death or how her corpse ended up in his home. When the police officers arrived at Lamboy's house in Crestone, they found Carlson immediately. They could see the twinkling, multi-colored makeshift shrine from down the hallway. The scene of sage hung in the air, and the room was decorated much like a child's bedroom with rainbows and hearts and stars. A few stuffed bunny toys perched atop the mantle above Carlson's body, as if keeping vigil. She laid on top of a bed, wrapped in a sleeping bag, decorated with Christmas lights. Her body was already decomposing. Her eyes had deteriorated to the point that they appeared to be missing entirely, and the area around the empty sockets had been dusted with glitter makeup. Her lips had receded, causing her teeth to protrude from her mouth. She was shockingly thin and her skin was blue. 7 of Amy's followers were present, along with 2 sleeping children, including Lamboy's 2-year-old son. They were arrested and charged with the abuse of a corpse and child abuse, which would later be dropped. I did a similar video about another cult that was also equally fascinating, which was the Heaven's Gate cult. Click on this video to watch what happened to them and how this shoe became an icon.